Now together, we place ourselves in the Wayback Machine with Tutor Turtle, courtesy of Mr. Wizard. And if this illustration isn't familiar to you, look up the videos later online. You'll enjoy them. It's an old 60s cartoon. But in the Wayback Machine, we are now becoming college students in Earlham College in Richmond, Indiana, in the middle to late 1980s. All college freshmen are gathered into their preceptorial classes, and they are given their first assignment. Are you ready, college freshmen? Only one of you is working with me here. Thank you, Dave. It is, and apparently he's familiar with Mr. Wizard. So there we go. The assignment begins like this. There's someone, perhaps several someones, you should thank for being here today. A teacher by vocation or inclination inspired your love of education, of learning. They inspired you to know more, to go further. Today, you will begin as you will be proceeding, knowing and thanking those that brought you here. Others came before you, just as there will be others who will come after you. But today, you'll begin by writing a thank you to those who have inspired you. And yes, as your professors, we will be reading them, checking for spelling and punctuation. And yes, once corrected, we will be mailing them. It is essential to realize that we do not achieve anything on our own. We have received everything. And what we're doing is building and handing on to the next generation. Ideally, something more than we ourselves have received, so that they in turn can do the same. Begin. Now, I didn't get to experience this lecture. I got to hear about it. I went to Knox, and I was terribly afraid that my friend Ellen went to a cooler college than I did. So if you know the cartoon, what you know is drizzle, drazzle, drizzle-drome, time for this one to come home. And we get back in the Wayback Machine and we come home. And here we are back in our comfy pews in 2025, examining the text we get from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, and the verses that Judy read for us. This awesome story in which a recipient of a gift of healing is additionally made well. This gospel text is clear that there's a distinction between the two, though they can exist together. This is such a multi-layered narrative, and it speaks to me differently each time I hear it. And I'm stunned by how often I read into it things that are not there. Like those other 9 that are made clean, that are healed. How often I'm lured into these thoughts of those ungrateful folks. And I don't know that that is true. I mean, what if they found Jesus in some other chapters that we just don't have, and they gave thanks in some other way? What if those other 9 just happened to be introverts? And they waited for a private moment? What if they wanted to find some really nice parchment and hire a scribe and had it handled that way? We don't know those things. So casting our judgments on things we don't know, that's not really very helpful, is it? It's more beneficial to look at what we do know and the actions of the one who did return. There's something to be learned there. So I love that at the start, all 10 of them are equal in their need and in their asking. I adore that each of the 10 receive the mercy they request. And asking and receiving are both given inside the practice of their faith. Jesus instructs those who have received mercy to go and show themselves to the priests. This is faithful and right so to do, as we would say. This within Judaism is understood inside the relational faith. Nothing happens in isolation. Going and being made or being declared clean is a public act. But then something different does happen. One of the 10 turned back, returned, praising God and threw himself at Jesus' feet, giving thanks publicly. And so I ask, how often in your daily life do you turn back, return to an event in order to examine it and give thanks? I don't want any witnesses here. It's just a point to ponder and think about as we move in this text. We are told that this one, he turns back. Hopistrapho is the Greek word, returned, turn around, or to examine once more, return to the origin of what happened. And now, what if returning to the experience, examining his life in this way, is akin to like turning and, say, examining a garden? Now work with me here, just work with me, because I want to generalize the experience so all of us can enter in. And not all of us have had horrible skin diseases or leprosy, but maybe all of us at least have seen a garden. An emotional, spiritual, maybe life garden set before us. The same fertile soil grows joy and anger. It grows thanks and envy. It grows worry and hope. You got this, right? Now, what if we have simply been going and going and going and going and not really tending our garden very much? And then one day something happens that, say, gets my attention. And on that day I pause and look for just a second. I want to look and reflect back on what just happened, and I see the following: the blooms of blessing, the thelkatrum of thankfulness, as well as the crocus of challenge. All of this is being overgrown by that invasive bishop's weed of my busyness. And that's right, bishop's weed is the stand-in for the tedium of my life. Now take a few moments. Unless I am pulling out that invasive thing that's there, the blessing, the thankfulness, and yes, even the perspective on the challenge, all those things that I have received, it's going to be overgrown, out of sight. I'll lose perspective, if you will. My sight will be obscured. I won't see clearly all I have received. Our garden, as we view it, won't really be reflecting the fullness of what has been planted and given, and it won't really show the ways that we have returned the gifts or shared those things that we had been given. And lest my words now become the bishop weed of sermons, I want to return to the text. Because that man, by giving thanks to God, he returned, allowing a return of perspective. It was his way of understanding that interconnectedness of who he was and whose he was. His way of knowing the context of the healing that was given to him. Because being declared clean, he was able to return to relationship, to community and family. Leprosy would have kept him separated and isolated, removed from everyone he once loved. But Jesus had returned him to those things. And in giving thanks, not only was there a healing, but there was a wellness. The perspective of the returning to the interwovenness of life. How could gratitude not be his response? It is, as David Stendhal Rast says, everything is a gift. The degree to which we are awakened to this truth is a measure of our gratefulness. And gratefulness is a measure of our aliveness. These connections are all around us if we have the eyes to see. It's one of the reasons I return frequently. There's a trilogy of books called Small Miracles, and I just return to them because it keeps my eyes opened to how often these things occur if we see them. And if you decide, this one happens to be in Small Miracles too. It starts on page 9. I'm so not reading you this. I find that kind of boring, but I'll tell you this story. So, Tzipporah, Tzitzi, was 4. She was on vacation with her parents. And they were in the mountains, and while they were traveling, a semi-tractor trailer hopped over the line, and it was a horrible car accident. They were rushed to the closest hospital. Her parents were in the intensive care unit, and she was in the children's ward. They were in the hospital for months. While she was in the children's ward, her nurse, Martha, developed a special care and bond with her. She cared for her during her shift, but also was there when she was off shift to just make sure that this little 4-year-old girl was cared after, because she was separated from her parents. The relationship between the 4-year-old and Martha, the nurse, became very close over this extended period of time. When the fractured bones of this 4-year-old began to heal, Martha would wheel her to the intensive care and the unit where her parents were so that she could be reassured. And after all of this time, when the family was able to go home, Tzitzi really wanted Martha to go home with them. She was like, please let her move in with us. It didn't happen. Martha was there, and she was a nurse, and that was her life. They stayed in touch for a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months. Life moved on. The family moved out of the country. All right, fine. It's 30 years later. Martha is hospitalized for pneumonia. She's in the hospital, and she's talking with this nurse who has shown amazing, compassionate care. And the nurse, she says, how did you get into nursing? And the nurse begins to tell her a story. And you know exactly where this is going, because of course it's going there. The nurse talks about the care she received when she was just a child. This amazing nurse who was there, and the compassion and the love. And the patient of this nurse, of course, starts crying. As Martha at the end of the story says, Tzitzi, now you're my nurse. Thank you. And this time, Tzitzi didn't ask so much as insist that a 75-year-old Martha, who had no family, come live with them and live out the rest of her days with her family at home. You see, the interconnectedness in life, it's right there. for those who have the eyes to see. And stories like being a freshman at Earlham College, or Tizzy and Martha, the biblical story we have in Luke. These are reminders. It's never too early, it's never too late to tend that emotional, spiritual garden, to be attentive and to cultivate the growth of gratefulness, to realize each aspect of life, from our language skills to our logic, to the land itself or our love of art. All of these are received. And each one of us is simply building on a legacy of the life and the love that we have been given by God or by our ancestors, by our teachers, our friends, our neighbors, anyone who has encouraged us. We're receiving from the farmers who feed us, the electrical workers who allow there to be lights or sound. We're receiving. Let us start to examine our lives and be grateful, for not a one of us does any single day on our own. Amen.